income. Is that correct?
They'll face fines up to 2% of their income or $2,250, whichever is greater.
So let's say a person makes $100,000 a year. That means they'll pay what percent of that income? 2.5%. That's $2,500.
Well, that's the fine if they don't have acceptable coverage, because you have to go back a step. $16,000.
But wait, I have a question for you. Who underwrites this coverage? Which companies are getting this business? No one's asking that question.
We won't know. Governments will be the ones to pick and choose, and all of the insurance companies will have to offer insurance plans that are acceptable to government. So they
wait a minute. So Nancy Pelosi's cronies could go into the insurance business and become insurers, or are they going to give it to the existing insurers?
It's whoever government approves.
So wait a minute. You're saying Al Sharpton could set up an insurance company and that could be approved by Obama?
I suppose.
Jesse Jackson could set up a health insurance company and get the business?
I think anyone could, as long as they are considered acceptable by government. That's what the IRS...
Oh, my God. You see, this is the real hidden secret of it all, which is who the hell is going to be the insurer?
Ultimately, it will be the government, but it's the IRS agents that they're going to send out to breathe down every American's neck. Every month, the IRS has to verify that you have insurance that's acceptable to government. I'm not making this up. This is in the bill. It just went up today. And they will be able to confiscate your tax return.
Isn't the IRS a division of the Treasury Department?
Yes, it is.
And the Treasury Secretary is none other than the imbecile, Geithner. So he's going to be the super cop overseeing all of this?
The fellow who did not pay $35,000 in his own taxes.
The imbecile who paid off his cronies on Wall Street is now going to make sure that you buy health care.
It's now Tim Geithner.
That's really encouraging. To see such a weakling like that in such a high position is astonishing. It wasn't bad enough when we had Paulson in there. Now we have this lunatic in there. So where does this all end up, Congresswoman?
Well, it ends up in the IRS. Their powers have been expanded exponentially. Can this be stopped, or it's a steamroller that's not going to be stopped? It can be stopped. A group is going to be having a big rally here in Washington at noon on Saturday. John Voight is going to be here. We hope some other big names are going to be here. And we need people to do what they've done before, to let these people know what their opinion is. I mean, this is worse than anyone ever thought. The IRS will be in our lives like we have never thought. They're a new social welfare agency, and they will be checking us out, our employer out, every month. And our confidential taxpayer information now will be revealed to the Department of Health and Human Services.
Oh, my God. So Big Brother is watching us.
Everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we do now has to be acceptable.
But they're only 2 votes away from passage, correct?
I think they have a little farther to go than that. I think they have a little farther. They're bluffing.
Why did President Obama cancel his trip to Indonesia to visit his old madrasas?
Because they didn't have the votes, and that's a good sign. He canceled because they were weaker than they thought. That's a good sign. But now,
well, they took Dennis Kucinich on a ride on Air Force One, and he flipped.
He flipped for a ride on Air Force One and a bag of M&Ms. I would have bought him the king-size bag.
Wow, what a cheap piece of work he turned out to be, Mr. Liberal, Mr. Socialist. I mean, he put on a good act for many years, didn't he? Isn't it true that his wife got a job with Michelle Obama, or she had one?
Yeah, she'll be working with Michelle Obama to promote the idea that if you eat vegan, you're going to lose weight.
Well, let's say that the truth should start at the top. Does Michelle eat vegan?
I have no idea.
Doesn't look it to me, but that's, my own opinion. Let's move on. Can it be stopped? That's all I want to know.
It's got to be stopped, and this is the final hour. They're planning to have the vote on Sunday.
Is this unusual to have votes on a weekend?
Oh, very unusual. But what's even more unusual is for people who are Christians, this is the Easter season called Lent. And on Sunday, on the Sabbath, they're going to force pro-life Democrats to take a vote on the Sabbath to force all Americans to pay for other people's abortions against their will and violate their moral conscience. They're going to profane the Sabbath by taking a vote like that. For the first time in American history, Americans will be forced, whether they want to or not, to pay for other people's abortions.
Congresswoman, you were targeted by Nancy Pelosi. Didn't you say that they were spending any amount of money to get rid of you? Is that still true?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Well, we put out the word that people should donate to your website or cause. Would you give it out again, Congresswoman Bachmann?
My website is michelebachmann.com.
Wow. So are you still a tax attorney? I'm just curious.
I remain a licensed attorney, but once a person is a member of Congress, they can no longer receive outside income. So I can't work.
Terrible, terrible. Michele Bachmann, we're with you. Thank you very much for being with us on the Savage Nation. We're very short of time right now. I'll be right back. Because many of you progressives or liberals don't understand you're actually going to pay for this. Many of you do-gooder liberals who are just so happy to see it not occurring in your own backyard have to understand that your costs are actually going to go up as well. You're not going to be exempt because you voted for Obama. All of you Marin County voters, all of you libs in the Upper West Side of New York, let's see if you're celebrating a few years from now when you're paying $14,000 a year in health care costs or in premiums. Let's see if all of you good liberals on the Upper East Side of New York who are sneering at conservatives when you're spending 27% more than the national average today will be so happy tomorrow. Also, who is actually going to do the insuring is a big question. I've asked that of Congresswoman Bachmann, and the answer is whoever the hell Obama wants to be the insurer. So, for example, if a crony of Nancy Pelosi's recently set up an insurance company, they will get the business that they deem they should get. What if Al Sharpton wants to set up an insurance company? It's possible that Obama will reward him for supporting him by saying, X $100 billion worth of insurance will go to you, Mr. Sharpton, because after all, you're such a distinguished reverend with such a great background that you should get several $100 billion or $1 million, $100 million in government business. And what about the great Reverend Jackson? What if one of his relatives wants to set up an insurance company? Or what if, name who? Pick anyone out of a hat. Don't limit it to Sharpton and Jackson. Pick a relative of Rahm Emanuel. What if one of them goes into the insurance business? Or what if one of them recently opened up an insurance business? Will they get government business? Yes, according to Congresswoman Bachmann, if the government, whoever that may be, decides that they should get the business, they will. So the question is, how much of a dictatorship do you think we're going to have, not whether we're going to have a dictatorship? Obama has rapidly, in over a year, moved us into a dictatorship. As I said to you before, he is Junior Doc, and he intends very much to be Papa Doc before he's finished. He's a very young man. He's a vigorous young man. He's only been in power for a year. If he grants amnesty to the illegal aliens using the slaughter technique, he could be president for life because there's nothing to stop this gang from eliminating term limits. So Obama could be president for the next 30 years. You say it's impossible? You're a fool. Anything is possible under this administration. It all depends upon how far the malice goes and how weak the American people prove to be. As of right now, the malice has no limits and the weakness has no limits. And so the quotient is quite frightening. This is the Savage Nation. I finally come back from vacation. Dr. Unsavage so kindly permitted me to kick his butt right out of the studio. And I am back, and I'll be with you for another hour here on the Savage Nation. And, of course, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, until via the slaughter technique, all Internet is deemed ungovernmental. Talk radio will be deemed a threat to the social order and be banned, perhaps, using, again, the no-vote congressional slaughter method. How aptly that woman is named. Sometimes art imitates life. Sometimes life imitates art. But it doesn't get any better when a woman named Slaughter literally slaughters the U.S. Constitution. So congratulations, New York, for putting a creature like her in power.